Okay, got that done. Now, let's try this. Let's try this. Yeah. Okay. This is so weird. I don't know why it's okay. Sorry, I've been fiddling with it a while, but it's never given me these issues. So I don't know what's going on here. Okay, come on. Let's try this. Where's the paste? Let's do this. All right, so we're going to do things a bit differently because Facebook Live is being a little annoying. But I just sent out an invite link to my Facebook page. So if people want to join, I just ask if they keep it mute is all, unless they have a question or something like that. But this meeting is recorded and it will be posted later tonight to the Facebook page, website, etc., etc. So after all that technical difficulty, welcome. It's good to have you on the show, Derek.
Thanks for having me. It's been a couple weeks in the making, so I'm happy to be on.
Definitely. I know both of us have some pretty busy schedules, and it's good to finally be here and actually get to talk. Thank you for being my first ever interview on the Burn KC. Hopefully that translates into more interviews, barring that this goes well. So so let's just start a little bit with your background here. Let's start with your playing and coaching career. A few things you want to mention about your personal life, maybe, and just how you became an ambassador for USA and Blues rugby.
So back in 2003, my high school principal was the rugby coach, and over the winter, worked on getting me out, and then finally gave it a shot in the spring. And from there, I pretty much just focused on rugby, quit football, and track and everything else, and played rugby full time. The lack of rules around youth rugby and men's, I played men's rugby starting when I was 15 years old.
Oh wow!
For a Division III team, and we played anyone from Division I Omaha Goats to KC Blues second, third side, whatever it was. Yeah. And so I got a lot of experience early on and got to see a lot of different things from a young age. A lot of things I probably shouldn't have seen at the socials and whatnot, but it was a really good experience, and I'm happy I was able to do that because it's definitely changed now, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's
after
definitely. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's gotten better. It's more professional and everything. That's always a positive thing. Um, but after high school, I immediately started helping him coach the high school team because I always had a pretty good passion while I was playing those first 3 years
Mhm.
for just learning the X's and O's and then learning the rules so that I could take advantage of them. Because playing in high school, you're typically playing against people that don't know the rules as well. So that was a huge advantage. Um, Putting myself into the law book and understanding the game from a deeper perspective, it often gave our team a bit of an advantage. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So that's something that stuck with me too. As the rules change in this game, because it does evolve on a yearly basis, you got to stay with that and use it to your advantage the best you can. Make sure your players understand all that.
Right.
So that's a bit of my background in Lincoln. Then I started playing for I continued to play for the men's club, the Lincoln Wolves rugby team, and um, that was a good experience because I played with guys that had played for 20, 30 years, and that's another part of where my passion came from is all the tricks and the dark arts that they were able to teach me that allowed me to be a bit of a better coach at a pretty young age. And I'm very grateful for all those guys. Some of them still playing, which is crazy because I can't even run anymore. But after Lincoln, I moved. Thanks to my mentor Nico, he sent me up to Aspen, Colorado to train for a shot to maybe get on the U.S. Sevens team. And so I lived up there and trained with the gentlemen of Aspen, which are a very storied program with a lot of tradition.
Yeah.
And that was by far one of the coolest experiences, just because not only the city, but the support and the city that embraces the sport so much, because there is such an international flavor in Aspen. It was kind of like playing overseas a bit. So I was very lucky there. And after that, I'd say the next one was I moved to Houston, Texas, played a little bit, got injured, blew my knee out, all that stuff, not even in contact, very unlucky incident. But then our head coach ended up moving away. I believe he went and coached at Palmer. And so it allowed an opportunity for me to volunteer coaching. And after about a week, they talked about it and gave me the head coaching job there. And so that was actually my first opportunity to head coach in 2013. The Bay Area rugby team in Houston, Texas. Age range from 18 to my average front row or type 5 age was like 45 years old for that team. So we were Division II in Texas, but we were very seasoned with a few young kids sprinkled in, and that was really cool. Teaching guys that are not teaching, but coaching and helping bring out some of their good skill sets that they brought to the table and blending them with the young athletes that we had. That was pretty interesting because I had never been a part of a team like that. So I was pretty lucky there.
Yeah. I guess we could go off more on that grassroots development style. I know in Kansas and Missouri high school rugby, there's kind of the two big dogs in Aquinas and the Blues, but in terms of getting all of the Kansas City area involved in some sort of rugby program and developing those grassroots in order to make, Kansas City, Missouri rugby better, as that did with Houston rugby, I'm sure. What suggestions do you think you have in terms of areas of potential growth with the high school programs in the area with the Blues?
I think a lot of the foundation has been there. I mean, the coaches have done a great job getting numbers out and having sustained success, which is a huge thing. That's good for the growth of the sport. Now I think we need to come together a bit, work together, as much as we can. I know we're all busy and have a lot going on, but the more we can share our ideas and look to the future and share the same vision and not so much work against each other. And I'm not saying anyone's working against each other, but you always have that mentality as a coach or even players, they're the enemy, they're the team we're always trying to beat. But there is an opportunity for teams and coaches to share ideas and share a vision so that we can go forward faster and more unified, because that'll be good for the sport and really good for grassroots rugby.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I think American rugby is just one giant community at the end of the day. And we need to continue to build on that community and build on that pipeline from high school / youth to college club to all the way up to the MLR in national play. I think there is a pipeline that needs to be set, but it's got some kinks in the chain as of right now, in terms of, getting people through that. How do you think, in terms of getting guys noticed on high school teams, what's the best way to go about that? I mean, obviously you have connections with a lot of college rugby programs, you being a coach at Davenport at one point. What do you look for in a high school player that will get him noticed?
So starting my recruiting at Davenport, I kind of had an idea of the best way to go about it, and then quickly learned that that might not be the case for other regions of the country. I know Midwest rugby really well, but around the country, things are a lot different, and you have to approach things with that mindset that you can't treat everyone the same, because it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But as far as getting the, talking to the athletes and getting them into the right schools and getting them to see the level of rugby that they can play, because a lot of them, whether people don't share, the vision that the high school kids can play for top teams in the country, because a lot of these coaches, you talk about Life, Linwood, Davenport, yeah, they want their studs that have been playing for 10, 15 years and been in all the academies and had tons of experience. But those coaches at the same time will take a kid that maybe has 4 or 5 years experience or less, and if he is the right kid and has the work ethic, you get into that environment with those coaches in that high performance setting, and they will succeed if they work hard enough. And just the same, if you get into, Heart of America is real big around here. You got Kansas, Kansas State, Nebraska, Iowa State, all those schools, Minnesota, Arkansas. They're so, even though they're not scholarship programs, those coaches, I know them really well. They approach the sport very professionally, and they do a lot of work that's probably not appreciated enough, but they're providing environments for kids to excel at. You just look at the draft that just happened, and Iowa State had a kid drafted, and Iowa Central Community College, who is a varsity program, but still out of the Midwest, had a kid drafted. And I'm just getting into the kids' heads early and often that they can play at a high level, but it just like everything in life, it comes down to that work ethic and that mindset that no matter what comes in front of you, you're going to keep going forward and keep building towards your vision of being a professional rugby player, playing for the United States. And that's something we really have to get into the kids' heads, that it's possible, and it's up to them to work hard for it. And then for us coaches, we just have to provide the environment for them and keep pushing kids forward.
Do you think it falls more on the coach's hands, or do you think a lot of that development should also come from USA Rugby and hosting more camps, maybe giving more attention to the college side teams and maybe the teams that aren't, Lindenwood and Life, but also, KU, who got second at 1A 1A. I forget what they call it now. They're changing the name every year. But what do you think is USA Rugby's responsibility in encouraging this development?
Well, the current state of USA Rugby, with just coming through the bankruptcy, trying to get away from that and building more of a foundation, I actually think that right now is the time for the coaches to kind of take charge, and the local unions to take charge of their own areas. And I know we're already undervalued and probably a lot of people don't even get paid or even reimbursed like they should. But right now we have to come together and figure out a structure for our local unions or our areas or states, whatever you want to call it, where we can share ideas, work together, put camps on, give the kids opportunities to be seen, and make sure that they understand that there are people out there working for them, because a lot of kids don't. They just show up to practice sometimes, and that does fall on the coaches to let the kids know that they're there to push them forward and teach them and develop them, just so they can pass them on to the next coach in the next level or whatever level they choose.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's we're just in a tough situation with USA Rugby. I mean, we can't depend on them to do it. We actually have to dig in and do a lot of the work. And from what I've seen in most areas, people are doing it. I mean, the academies and all that are a huge step in the right direction, because I think if you go back to like a territory all-star kind of structure, even in high school and in development ages, we're going to see more competition, more success, and it's just going to create more of that rugby culture that we've kind of lost, actually.
Yeah. Do you
a lot
think
of these kids?
Yeah, go ahead. Do you think the MLR has any sort of impact on that, with how they operate and how they draft players and everything like that? I mean, do you think they have some sort of positive or negative impact?
They have a lot less of a responsibility than USA Rugby does. So with me saying that it's on us for the most part to take control of our unions, that's kind of what those professional teams are doing. They will have some outreach and engagement with other states and regions, but mostly they're going to do their local academies. They're going to try to bring in, youth programs, touch rugby, flag rugby, and probably put together a U18 teams. I think most of the teams have put together U18 sides at some point, to draw kids from all the high schools. And then not only does that develop kids, it gives them a really cool opportunity to be in a professional environment. And I hope the MLR is treating those high school kids as professionally as they do their athletes. Because to me, a paycheck doesn't define professional. It's how you approach the game. And I hope those coaches are approaching those high school kids just like they do their professional athletes that get paid. So, I mean, yeah, it's just a regional thing that you have to do to develop your brand and all that in the MLR. And that's understandable. We don't expect them to be reaching out 3-4 states away and trying to develop our kids.
Yeah, that's true. So how do you think the Blues should further the development in the Kansas City area? I mean, what stands out most in the potential of this area? Obviously, we got the 2 big high school programs, but in terms of men's club recruiting, what exactly do you look for? Because I know you were at college at Davenport. Is there any differences between college and club recruiting, or what exactly are you looking for when it comes to guys that are going to make that D1 roster?
Yeah, so college recruiting, I mean, you're looking to find the environment for the kid where they have, an area of study that they want to get into, and you don't want to force them into a school where they're going to play really good rugby, but they have to choose a different program than they actually really want to. So that's a bit different. Then you go to club rugby, and the recruiting aspect of club rugby for me isn't going out and handing out business cards and doing all that. It's about going out in the community, in the off season, putting on little camps, talking to the high school kids, running touch for them, running water for them. That's where you really make a big footprint in the local age grade rugby programs, because they'll notice, they'll take the fact that you care and show that you take time for them will go a long ways. And you just create a relationship. I mean, running water for a team could create a relationship with that coach, and then that coach is going to talk about the Blues just a little bit more, or that coach or that player that from the Blues that went and helped out at that high school game. I think that's just, from my perspective, that's how I want to help the Blues reach out to the high school kids and all the other colleges in the area too, because you can approach recruiting college kids the same way and go to those colleges, go to those playoff games and all that, and just lend a hand. I mean, I know we already volunteer a lot of time and whatnot, but you can really make an impact just giving just a bit of time to the kids and the other coaches.
Yeah, definitely. I think those relationships are super duper important when it comes to building and developing players. Once you have that prior relationship, even in those high school and college days, you're going to get a guy that is more dedicated to the program because they know you better.
Yeah.
That's the plain, just general answer. And I guess another thing that I wanted to ask was, I know building a front row has been a key focal point of Blues rugby this season. What are you looking for in a successful front row? Because obviously that's a position of need. Like, in terms of positions of need, what do you look for in your current crop? Again, in terms of guys that are going to be developed to get to that D1 point. I mean, I know you look for a lot of potential with some guys, but what other aspects do you tend to look at?
So coming in, I've been able to evaluate a few players through sevens and the few practices that we've had, but really looking at front row, not always just looking for the guy that's the biggest or the strongest. That does play a role. But the front row is a group that's kind of unlike any other, because you have to have some power, you have to have some size, and you have to have flexibility, and a whole lot of toughness, to be honest. So you're looking for somebody, in my opinion, that you can put up there that it's one of those situations where you're drawing a line in the sand, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to every time. So, I mean, right now we have 3 or 4 trainings left before Metropolis. So it's our job as coaches now to find the guys that are going to walk up to that scrum every single time, draw a line in the sand, whether they actually do it or they just think about it. And they join together, and we find a way to get the right 3 guys up front that are going to work together and make the other team's lives a bit difficult for 80 minutes.
Right.
So any specific stuff, I'm not looking for a certain size, build, anything like that, or experience level. It's more of going to be a toughness and mentality thing, because I think we can switch that on first and then build from there. Because I really do think that the scrum allows for a lot of technique to trump power and size. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. And we'll just have to fix and adjust from there. But I think that's my opinion as far as what we've had so far. We have plenty of talent, plenty of size, plenty of athletes to play that position. And we have some coming in from overseas. So we'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah, that overseas talent can really put a booster in your club for sure. And that's pretty much what they're there for, from this level all the way up to the MLR. I mean, you see it with Ma'anonu and all those guys, Quade Cooper. And it's definitely a common theme when it comes to men's clubs. What challenges do you see with the schedule this year? Obviously, you got Metropolis right out the gate. But what other challenges do you see?
I think just besides looking at one game at a time kind of mentality of let's get into Metropolis and get that win. The road games are always the ones that you kind of key in on, and we try to map out as coaches how we're going to build the right environment and everything, because club rugby is hard. A lot of these guys, we all have full-time jobs. We do work. We're tired. We have families. We have kids. They have activities, all that. And so when you talk about going to away games that are 8 to 10 hours away, you're really asking for a lot of sacrifice from guys. And you don't always get, your top 15 or your top 23 to an away match every time. So right now, I think we're trying to really build the environment and everything to where that sacrifice is just a given, and those guys will find ways to make it to those games, because those are games we have to win. I mean, you want to win every game, but those away games are really important.
Definitely.
considering our past results and how things have shaken out at the top of the table when it comes time for playoffs. So those are the ones I'm kind of thinking about and trying to map out a little bit of planning and whatnot so that we can kind of hit the road running when we get there.
Definitely. I know we got a big string of away games and that travel lag definitely hits, but also just the fact that you're not in front of that home field with a bunch of Blues fans in the stands is definitely making a difference as well. I know a lot of Blues people travel well, but with those 4 away games, it's going to be grueling, but I think this team is definitely up to the task.
I'm excited about that part. You mentioned the Blues fans at home. I haven't been to a Blues home match in a long time. Last time I was playing against the Blues, and it wasn't very much fun. But a lot has changed since then. That was a long time ago, and I'm excited to see all the fans, and I'm hoping to see over 1,000 people out at that first game against Metropolis. And not only can our front row and the rest of the guys make Metropolis uncomfortable for 80 minutes, but I hope the fans play a big part in that, and all the alumni and supporters that we have. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait.
Definitely. We're definitely going to get that promotion started for sure. I know I'm a big PR guy and social media guy, so I'll make sure to share it on the Burn KC socials and everything like that. Hopefully this interview makes an impact as well, gets the people going. Speaking of that Raiders Cup and stepping away from rugby for a bit, what are your realistic expectations for the Raiders this year and the rest of the AFC West for that matter?
AFC West is going to be tough. That's one of the most talked about conferences in the league right now. So, I mean, I just saw a tweet, a report from somebody that Tom Brady was a lock to go to Las Vegas, and John Gruden blew it up. I thought about it, and I'm like, I would take 1 Super Bowl with Derek Carr over 3 Super Bowls in a row with Tom Brady. And that, you can say that's BS or whatever, but Derek Carr has been through so much with Las Vegas and in Oakland and all that you can't help, even if you hate him, you got to cheer for a guy like that has put his time in and come through so much adversity, and still said without a doubt that he wants to retire a Las Vegas Raider. I just think that's something special, and I hope the rest of the team this year can rally around him and provide that. I think the realistic expectation this year is a playoff win. That's big. I mean, we came really close. Last year was a big year of adversity for the Raiders, and we nearly knocked off the Bengals in the first round, and not everything was perfectly in place for that game. But yeah, I think this year is a year we're going to get that playoff win. A lot of my friends joke I'll be able to watch the Raiders win a playoff game in HD for the first time. So that's cool.
That is cool. Yeah. I don't even think HD existed the last time the Raiders won a playoff game.
No,
maybe
in 2002, 2003, maybe.
Yeah.
About the last time.
Bill Calhoun or whatever his name was.
Bill Callahan.
Yeah, Bill Callahan.
One of the most underrated Nebraska coaches of all time.
Well, shoot, he had one heck of a team that Super Bowl year. Basically John Gruden's team, but I don't know. I have faith in the Raiders as well. I like Derek Carr as much as a Chiefs fan can like Derek Carr, and I think that Devontae Adams connection will make a difference. But the AFC West is going to be extremely competitive this year. I mean, you've got 4 great quarterbacks in the NFL that are just going to be gunning it for that top spot, and it's going to be exciting. I think how the AFC West is going to shake out is going to define who goes far in the playoffs, in my opinion, with how much competitiveness there is there.
I went as far as at the golf outing for the Blues a couple weeks ago. My friends from Nebraska came down, and they hate the Raiders and all that. I ended up making a bet that a specific finish order for AFC West would be Las Vegas in first place, Chargers in second, Chiefs in third, Broncos in fourth.
Hmm.
I just think, unfortunately for the Chiefs, that this is going to be a down year, and I think the Chargers are on the rise. And like you said, and honestly, that order could be completely flip flopped, and nobody would really argue too much.
Oh,
Because Russell
seriously.
Wilson, you have no idea what he's going to be able to pull off.
Yeah.
So it could be a pretty special year in the AFC West.
Yeah. We'll see if Russell Wilson still has something left in the tank for sure. I know he got abused in Seattle, so it'll be tough. My personal thoughts are, I think the Chiefs, well, first and foremost, your point to the Chargers are rising this year. I think Brandon Staley made a very bad decision last year, and
I loved it.
well, I know you did. And I hope that doesn't define his coaching career, because I think he's a decent coach. I think he's developed Justin Herbert well, but man, if he lets that decision eat at him, I don't know if the Chargers, again, like you said, it's extremely unpredictable, and that could be flip flopped. I mean,
Yeah.
And then in terms of the Chiefs, I mean, I've written article upon article about them, but I think they have a very underrated wide receiver group. I think you have a lot of balance and options there for Patrick Mahomes, and I think Patrick Mahomes is going to find those options. Like, people really love to discount him and how he's just a street ball player. I mean, he's different from Brett Favre, in my opinion. I think he's a lot more accurate, but he continues to get compared to him, and I don't see it. So
Yeah.
a lot more mobile than Brett Favre. We're running a little bit out of time here because I'm a cheapskate and don't have Zoom Pro. But let's leave it off with, what do you have to say to my audience? Just in general, like, what do you got to shout out? Like, any shameless plug or anything like that, perhaps?
No, if there's any rugby players out there, just let high school kids know that I'm a resource and I'm willing to help anybody find the right environment, or men's club players, whatever it is. And outside of that, just keep supporting Alex